Hey Nerfers, I'm Addy Thomas.
I am Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us for a special episode of Certain Point of View.
A very special episode.
We have a Star Wars episode that was the foundation of this podcast has always been Star Wars. So it's always fun when we actually get to a Star Wars topic.
I'm so excited about this episode.
I know. And before we even get to the website, I just want to wish some of our dear friends, you know, sort of a rest in peace. Sean, Renee, Jason, you're all dead to us now. No, we're just kidding. We're just kidding.
Yeah.
Even though you disagree with us and don't like this movie,
we still love you.
Yeah, but we may talk to you a little bit less. You may see less of us around.
I'm not saying that at all. That's Addy. I'm not saying that. It's okay to dislike this movie.
Yeah, it really is.
You know, it's fandom.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a Superman story that you can tell that's going to make me interested in Superman.
And it's fine if you're a fan of Superman. So, you know.
I'm still friends with J-Mike for some reason. He's a Jags fan and Superman fan. Yeah. Like, there's two things that I just can't stand.
Well, while we ponder that for a minute, don't forget you can go to our website, certainpov.com. All of our podcasts are there. And it would be remiss if we don't mention that there's going to be an event coming up on the Scruffy Nerfers in a couple of weeks. Yeah. I know Case is so blown by this. Like he enjoyed the Last Jedi.
I thought he was going to throw a shoe.
Oh yeah, he was so angry. There's a particular moment in the Last Jedi that happens. I'm not going to spoil it now because I want you to check out the Scruffy Nerfers, enjoy when it happens. But
it's a big moment in the show.
Yeah, it's a big moment at the end of that particular episode. And
we recorded it weeks ago.
Over a month
3
ago.
weeks ago.
Yeah. There was a very similar moment in the Last Jedi.
Yeah. Like strikingly similar.
Yeah. But, you know.
And by strikingly, like identical.
In our case, I'd like to think, you know, great minds think alike. So Case and Rian Johnson are great minds, and they both had a really cool moment in the story. So, and I haven't heard a lot of people really criticize that moment too much. I've seen some people criticize it, but like whatever.
They're trolls.
Yeah. So anyway, well, don't forget you can go to our website, certainpov.com. All of our podcasts are there, including the Scruffy Nerfers, which is definitely worth a check out if you enjoy sort of an irreverent adventure in the Star Wars universe. So with us making Star Wars quotes along the way, shoehorning them in.
If you thought The Last Jedi was too corny and too laughy, you'll hate the Scruffy Nerfers.
CertainPOV.com. All right, so let's get into it. Last Jedi. So here's the thing, Ben. Mm-hmm. We could very easily go all over the place with this review. It's very easy for this to be a long review. I mean, here's also a thing to preface it. So with The Force Awakens, we did a couple reviews. Rogue One, we did one because I think we hit a particular position with Rogue One, and we've never really shifted from there. Mm-hmm. I don't anticipate necessarily a shift with
there
The
are
Last
definitely
Jedi.
a lot more varied opinions on this movie.
Right, and I think, you know, this is going to be our first review on The Last Jedi. You know, I'm sure we're going to do some with time past and revisiting it. Maybe when it releases to home, like home release to digital or something, maybe we'll do another review. But even in between that here and then, I think we will also do reviews with some of the people who are guests on our show
who love it and who hate it.
Exactly, because we do want to get those perspectives and really kind of dive into like, okay, what was the thought process that made you feel that way? Because here's one thing. Here's a really good example as far as our my position on a movie that really ended up disappointing. A movie I wanted to like really badly. Mm-hmm. Like I walked into Dark Knight Rises really wanting to love that movie and having a very specific expectation for the death of Batman. Yeah. And when that wasn't filled,
that movie was very disappointing to you.
Yeah. And even outside of that movie was very disappointing.
Yeah, that movie was a disappointing movie to begin with. But if you have certain expectations and you're going into it
that
with
can frame a movie.
Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of the criticism that I'm seeing for this movie online is a result of that. I'd say a majority of that, of people that I'm seeing saying this is like, well, I wanted to see this and I wanted to see this and I wanted this answered this way and I wanted that answered this way. And they didn't.
And we'll address those complaints.
We'll address those complaints. But the reality is, like, you went in expecting a certain movie and you didn't get that movie. And now you're upset that you didn't get that movie.
Yeah, and in some people's, thought process, they felt certain things were built up to. But let's get to that. So here's my thing with this movie. I think that this is not a movie like a George Lucas Star Wars movie. This is definitively a Rian Johnson take within the Star Wars universe. It is still a Star Wars movie, but definitely Rian Johnson's voice in it. Which here's one thing I'm very excited about that. With all the bad publicity about like what's happened with Josh Trank, with Colin Trevorrow, with Lord and Miller on the Han Solo movie, even with Gareth Edwards, and to some extent even with J.J. Abrams on The Force Awakens, there's been like a lot of talk of like, okay, Disney's been messing with
Kathleen Kennedy is not allowing anybody to have any kind of originality
or creativity. Mm-hmm. And here, this movie
is decidedly...
This is a Rian Johnson movie.
For sure.
And Kathleen Kennedy was fine with it, and is not only fine with it, she's excited about it because she's given Rian Johnson his own trilogy to play with however he wants within the Star Wars universe in any time or location in the Star Wars universe. For him to create, from what we know, it's not going to be Old Republic, but we do know it's going to be new and original characters.
Yep.
So that being said, I think
it's hard to hear that criticism of like, oh, Disney is ruining Star Wars.
Yeah,
that light,
I
like
that
doesn't make
don't
sense.
Agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's just fanboy whining right there.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest.
So here's the other thing. So for me though, I think a lot of this movie isn't dependent. It takes a lot of the tropes that we're familiar with in Star Wars and then subverts them consistently. Right. Like there's a lot of that in this movie across the board. But in it results in a lot of very strong character arcs. And to me, my favorite part of Star Wars has always been the mysticism of Star Wars, which is why Empire is my favorite movie at this point. So, and this movie deals very heavily in that aspect of the Star Wars universe.
It's interesting what they've done with the Star Wars universe, because like Star Wars starts out as a mystical story, with New Hope, Empire, and Jedi. And then we get the prequels, and it takes it in a very scientific direction with the midichlorians.
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, it's okay, so it's not exactly mystical. Like, there's some sort of science behind this with the midichlorians. And now, like, it's taken it back to its roots of, no, there's still mystical stuff going on here that you don't understand and, you can't count. So I thought that was a great direction to take the franchise. Like that was a direction I really wanted. And we talked about this in earlier podcasts that throughout the year of we were hoping that Star Wars would get back to its mystical roots. And they definitely have done that. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and part of that also includes, I think when you talk about the mysticism of Star Wars and the nature of the Force, yes, you could say certain people are more powerful in the Force than others, but that doesn't mean when two people face off and they have the Force that it's not about power levels. I'm not a fan of when people say, well, this guy's more powerful, so it doesn't make sense.
You should know everything.
Right. Or like, because like Kylo Ren versus Rey, there was a lot of debate about that. Like, It doesn't make sense for Rey to take out Kylo Ren. Well, I mean, I think there were a number of factors in that fight.
And I think they answered that in this
whole light. And it's mentioned in Force Awakens as well that darkness rises and the light rises to meet it.
Right, and vice versa.
Exactly. So the idea was the Force was reawakening in Kylo Ren and in Rey was the impression I got from Force Awakens, and that is something they continue to deliver on in this movie.
Yeah,
with Snoke being the old guard for the dark side and Luke being the old guard for the light.
And basically, yeah, and Luke and we're gonna get into a little bit of like the Snoke theory there.
Yeah,
but like, who is Snoke? Well, Snoke is an answer from the dark side to Luke Skywalker.
Right.
That's who he is.
Yeah, Luke wiping out the Emperor and Palpatine. He's the answer
He's
to the rise of in the light side.
Yeah, to keep the balance.
Because it was no longer the universe was no longer balanced. The Force was no longer in balance. So yes, that's not a definitive of like, okay, this Snoke was born on,
this planet, or he was a will, or anything like that.
His first name's Bob. He has 3 sisters.
He drives a Corvette.
But yeah, so we didn't get that specificity. But and frankly, I'm fine with.
I don't need that.
I think I will say I do want to know more about his background, but here's the thing. I don't need it in a movie.
I don't need it in that movie.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with it showing up in the extended universe.
I didn't need it in Return of the Jedi with the Emperor.
Right.
And that's exactly who that role. Like we didn't finish Return of the Jedi going, I don't know anything at all about the Emperor. I don't know where he came from. I don't know, like, why is he supposed to be so powerful? Why does he have so much power over Vader? I don't understand. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, he died like a bitch. Vader just picked him up and threw him down a well. Like, why didn't he use Force power to just pull himself back up? Calm down, people. Like, if you're gonna judge this movie by that standard, you gotta shit on the original ones too.
Yeah,
like you can't. You can't. That's my biggest problem with a lot of the criticism that's going on right now. Is like they're holding the new movies to a much higher standard than any of the movies that have come before it. And I think that's ridiculous.
And I don't even think it's just a high standard. I think it's also
the expectations.
Well, I think it's also inflating the standards that have been held to the original trilogy.
Absolutely.
And I think we're guilty of this also when we come to when we've passed judgment on the prequels. And I'm not saying the prequels are good movies. The prequels are decidedly not quality movies. I think they had very ambitious ideas that were not well executed. But there is stuff that
still good in them.
There's still good in them, yeah. But there is stuff I legitimately enjoy in the prequels, to be perfectly honest.
I do too.
And
I've so as I get older too, and have a little time separated from them, and then I kind of go back. And
I'm not
see
as quite a vehement hater as I used to be.
Yeah.
I'm not quite on that red letter media train that I used to be on.
Right. Yeah.
Which I like. I mean, those are fun reviews to watch because of how they do tear apart those movies.
Right.
And there was a certain cathartic. Catharsis from trashing the prequels,
and I think there's a lot of that going on right now too. I think there's a lot of people just jumping on the hate train.
Yeah,
it's very trendy right now in our society to hate things.
Yeah, and there was hate for Force Awakens as well, and I know that it's not necessarily the same people who hate Force Awakens who hate this movie. I know that there is sort of a mixed group of it. Let's look at the characters because I think this movie had really strong character development. So
okay, let's go through them.
Major character Rey.
Fantastic arc, right?
Yeah.
Like, I love the fact that they answer who her parents are.
Yeah.
Subvert the complete expectation.
It was what I was always wanting, though.
We were
and
hoping
I had said for a long time that here's the thing, and we're gonna get back into sort of like the mysticism of it all. But I like Luke's arc in the original trilogy. But I always felt a little bit of this idea of destiny got thrown at him, which is it's the right story. It's the right story to tell for him. Like at first you think he is a nobody, and then all of a sudden that's thrown in your face, and oh my god, he's the son of the villain. Like that was the hardest thing for him to hear. Rian Johnson mentions that like that was the hardest thing for Luke to hear and for the audience to accept. So now it's suddenly complicated everything as far as can he kill his father? Now all of a sudden he's not alone in the galaxy anymore. Like.
The temptation to the dark side becomes real.
Exactly. But it also became a very interesting idea with the idea of destiny versus choice, which I have always, along with as part of the mysticism, that's always been a very important part of Star Wars is the idea of letting yourself being taken by destiny, which I think is something Anakin let himself be taken by destiny because he was the chosen one.
Right.
He let that take over his life rather than making the choices he should have been making because he felt they were right. Luke decides to shake off destiny and make a choice because Yoda and Obi-Wan doesn't think there's anything left to redeem in Vader, whereas Luke thinks there is something, and he shakes off and does something unconventional and emotional and reckless, and he's able to redeem Vader.
Right.
It's that recklessness, that impulsiveness that results, but still a belief in good is, and that he doesn't have to succumb to destiny, that he still has a choice that's able to redeem Vader. But I think what's also important though is now we have an everyman. Because the thing is, this Force, and I don't think this was ever assumed, even with the prequels, is that you had to be born into a Force family. Your parents didn't have to be Jedi.
Yeah.
I mean, there were Force-sensitive kids all over the place. We've seen it in the cartoons that, you could be... Yeah, you could be...
Obi-Wan didn't come from a Force-sensitive family.
Right. You could just be born with a certain... Like, some people are more Force-sensitive than others, but you're kind of born with it, but it's not necessarily hereditary. There's a difference.
Right. Yeah.
So, with Rey, I'm excited that there isn't any reason that she's special, but she wanted a reason to be special. She wanted to be a part of a family.
All of us do.
Right, but she wanted to have this story like Luke, where she was someone's, someone special's daughter.
Right. Yeah.
And here's the thing. Like, I know a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, they're coming up with a new theory every day about who Rey's parents were going to be." But the thing is, it was already kind of foretold with Maz, where she said, child, like that.
It's not behind you. There's nobody coming back for you.
Yeah, they're not coming back for you. There's nothing left for you on Jakku, and you have to move forward on this path. And Kylo Ren essentially does the same thing, and you kind of see with the Force vision she has in the dark side version of the cave on Ahch-To, similar to Dagobah's cave. That she sees the only thing is herself, because the thing is
there isn't anything else,
right? And she's got to make a choice to make her own path. This isn't some sort of predestination to make her some special. She's not a space princess of any sort,
right?
But she is someone who can achieve greatness because she's making decisions, and that's the thing. Like I've always been opposed to sort of that Calvinistic idea of predestination,
right?
Which has always been a huge appeal for me in Star Wars, is the idea of taking fate, throwing it away, and making it on your own. So. And that was always a really cool part about Luke, and that is a part I think is very interesting about Rey, as well. So taking Rey along that path and letting her forge her own path, because right now in this movie she's obsessed with who Luke is and aspiring to be like Luke and aspiring to be what the Jedi were, instead of forging her own path.
And then what ends up happening is she ends up having that all torn away from her.
Yes.
And all ripped away from her. Luke is not who she wanted him to be.
Right. The Jedi are.
The Jedi are not who she wanted
Kylo
them to
Ren
be.
isn't the monster that she wanted him to be.
Yeah, everything that she hoped for and romanticized about life, and this sort of childish, immature fantasy of how life should work, has been stripped away from her. And so she's left with facing the reality that the world and the universe is not what she thought it was. She has to, make her own way. She has to make her own destiny.
Right.
And she has to be her own self-actualized person.
Even to the point of where she thinks she can redeem Kylo Ren, and it doesn't work out how she hopes.
Yeah.
Even when she thinks she has it for a moment, but then it's taken
and then
away.
It's like, yoink.
I thought that was a brilliant
move.
And I know Snoke is a casualty of that.
But I think that's great.
I think it was a great one. It's the first time we've seen an apprentice kill their master in a power move. In a power move, because Vader did it in a moment of redemption, not as
a typical Sith move,
right? Whereas Kylo Ren has done it, and he's killed him, and he's
taken his place.
Yep,
and he is the big bad.
Yeah,
and I'm excited about that. But more about Rey. Like, I'm excited because we have a hero now who's female, who's strong, who's smart, who is powerful, who is capable, and who's self-actualized,
and is also crazy vulnerable too. There is very flawed, also impulsive in some ways, but also not as disillusioned. Like who is disillusioned?
Who is disillusioned by the fantasy of the Jedi?
Right.
Which we got This is what I love about this movie is it takes the things that we all criticize about the prequels. Like, we go, how the hell did the Jedi not notice Palpatine doing all
down
this
the hall?
Yeah, like he's right. He's talking to Yoda. How did Yoda miss this? Right. And they address it in the movie. They're like, oh yeah, they were hubris. Like we're just dumbasses. Like the Jedi are stupid. Like,
there was pride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's able to see that. She's able to be taught that by Luke.
Yeah.
Like, there's been some criticism that I've seen of Luke doesn't teach her anything. No, he teaches her really important things about the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And about the mistakes that he saw made, we've seen made throughout the movies, and that he's made as well. Like, I think the creation of Kylo Ren is an extension of that hubris through
right,
Luke.
because he accomplishes certain things and he kind of bought into his own legend. And
Yeah.
in some ways, pride you can see is a downfall of multiple characters in this movie. Because
so
Snoke's
many
pride,
times. Yeah.
results in his death
Yep.
because he feels incredibly confident. He's
Got it
at
all
it.
under
He's
control.
right at his moment of victory.
Yep.
And yet he doesn't see Kylo Ren.
Manipulating.
He sees Kylo Ren's thoughts, but he doesn't realize that they're vague enough that it's being used against him.
Yes.
In that very same moment, I love the way that Kylo Ren
So
manipulates the saber
subtly.
in the same
One
movement.
hand, yes, the
Yeah.
one in his hand plus the one that he's manipulating with the Force is so genius and so subtly shot.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not really paying close attention, you don't realize that he's moving his hand in the exact same motion
Yeah.
that the other saber is moving.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It is really a brilliantly shot and captured moment.
Yeah, and then so let's come around to Luke. So we talked about the pride, the hubris. So and of course we have a much more dejected Luke, who the first thing he does is he throws his old saber, his dad's saber, over his shoulder, which I've heard a lot of hilarious, and I've also heard a lot of people criticize the hilarity of that because we've been waiting 2 years for it. And I mean, have you not watched a trailer for this movie? Like, did you not see that he was
expectations going
Yeah.
into this film? I think were not met because a lot of people had how they wanted this movie to go.
There is a lot of, so again, it's deconstructing a hero, and that's not an expected thing for a Star Wars movie because we're bought into, and it's something I think this society is dealing with big time. Like the idea of,
Well, we've been dealing with it since the 70s, since Nixon.
right, the realizing our heroes aren't who they are, aren't necessarily who we've made them up to be, and how do we deal with that? Do we reject them, or do we realize
how do they
their
deal
flaws?
with it? And how does a hero deal with it? Realizing they're not the hero that they think they should be.
And my opinion on that is, look, we should realize a hero's flaws and also realize in some ways that's also what makes them more heroic and someone to look up to, but also to recognize those flaws and learn from those, which I think is such a big part of Luke's story. I love that this is brilliantly carried over. Like, it's still within character. It may not be what you expected the legend of Luke Skywalker to be.
But that's just it. That's the legend of Luke Skywalker.
Exactly.
Not the reality.
And when you see that he wants to, the moment with Yoda, which is my favorite moment in this movie. There's plenty of great action in this movie, but his conversation with Yoda, which was awesome to see as a puppet again, by the way, as creepy and in some ways it's a little
weird looking.
Yeah, it's very weird and it doesn't quite match. But once you get past that, it's a puppet. Like, I'm like, okay, I can get back into this. I love the idea of masters are meant to be outgrown, and that's the thing. The original trilogy has to be outgrown, and the idea of Luke still being the same kid whose eye was always on the horizon, as Yoda describes. Just like in Empire, he impulsively leaves because his eye is constantly on the future,
and never right here.
Right, and that was his his fault with and how he dealt with Kylo Ren instead of dealing with the here and the now. Instead of he looked
to the
future
of like who this guy could become,
and he saw that it was certain that it was going to become that.
And
Snoke had already turned him in his mind.
Yeah,
and his impulse, because he is impulsive, and the way to deal with evil
is to kill it,
is to take it down.
Yeah.
But as he thought about it, he realized, okay, there's still a possibility for good in him, but it was too late.
It's too late.
Unlike Vader, in this case, his impulsiveness hurt him.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like, I've heard people say, oh, well, he tried redeeming Vader. Why wouldn't he try to redeem Kylo Ren? Let's not forget that it took him, he chopped off Vader's hand before he, calmly said, you know what?
I've gone too far.
Yeah. And it was just a mechanical hand.
I might have lost my temper.
Yes. So Luke has always been impulsive. So it's still consistent with the character.
It's completely consistent with the character. And especially, the thing, the complaining about, Luke being like this grumpy hermit, why would a Jedi Knight wouldn't, seclude himself and just be this have you ever met anybody who's lost their faith?
You're right.
They're not particularly happy people through that process. When you get to a point where you're like, fuck this, everything I believe is just bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm out. You want to be left alone. He said, I'm here on this planet just to die. I just want to die. at this point. Like I'm just biding my time, drinking this milk out of this monster and hanging out here, just waiting to die because it's the last place anybody will look for me.
Yeah.
Now that is true to me. Like that makes sense to me. Like to have a hero when you have a hero who has the trauma of God, my whole religion is a lie. My whole purpose of doing this and everything that I believed and everything I thought about myself and everything I thought about the whole mythology and the legend of being Luke Skywalker is bullshit, because look at this utter failure. My sister's kid, my best friend's kid, has turned against me, killed destroyed my church and destroyed, everything that I've been building and trying to rebuild.
Killed the students that didn't want to join him.
Right. Yeah. That now all of a sudden, like, yeah, you have two choices in that moment. You have the choice of I'm going to fight back and I'm going to pick myself up and we're going to work through this, or you have the choice of this is going to break me. In this case, it broke him.
Yeah,
and
in the course of it, he decided to pick himself up.
Yeah, eventually. But it took Yoda and it took Rey and it took a lot to get him to that final moment.
And with a very interesting lesson that takes Star Wars and I think a lesson that we all can learn, to be honest, is the idea of being a teacher and being a leader. Because I think all these characters are learning how to be leaders,
right?
Throughout this, like Rey, Luke, Leia, not so much. Leia's passing on. Snoke is trying to pass on, but Kylo Ren for sure. Poe and even Finn, I think, are all learning to be leaders,
and I think also learning to let go of the past.
Right, but there's a difference between being a hero and being a leader.
Yeah.
And Yoda says this perfectly, this idea of not just passing on your strengths, but passing on your weaknesses, because weakness is failure is the greatest teacher.
Yeah.
And to me, that was such a brilliant and subtle and amazing and just mind-blowing moment.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that solidifies this movie as on par with Empire and potentially even better.
Yeah. The thing, we've mentioned a one word particularly a couple times through this conversation already, and that's subtly.
Yeah.
This movie is very subtle in what it does.
Right. And the plot is very dense because it's accomplishing a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. You're bouncing between a lot of different characters, and it is all weaving together to an end point to get to a certain point. But it is subtle. Like there's a lot of things that if you're just like kind of casually watching, casually listening, and like, oh, well, how come, this isn't, and you're thinking, oh, I have these expectations of how this movie should go. You're missing major plot points along the way that are just kind of like just being thrown out there in conversation that aren't real. Like I love the writing and I love the execution by the actors in this movie of how, again, subtle everything is.
Yeah.
Like it's very, there's not a ton of it where you're like, okay, you kind of hit me over the head with that one. Like I get it. That's the point of the movie.
Right.
But it all just kind of weaves together into a plot.
And these characters have more to work with than George Lucas ever gave any of his characters.
Ever combined.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for Irvin Kershner, we would not have a crazy ton of really interesting character development in all of Star Wars, to be perfectly honest. As much as I love Return of the Jedi, as much as I love A New Hope, the meat of character that we get is with
Empire.
Kershner and Kasdan's contribution to the world that Lucas and the framework that Lucas has created. Lucas, and here's the thing, I love Lucas.
Lucas builds a great skeleton.
Lucas is a great world builder. He builds a great skeleton. But when he gets into some of the specifics, you look at some of the best decisions in A New Hope, it came to Marsha Lucas. It wasn't George's decisions in a lot of those.
So all this like talk about we need to get George back.
Calm down, guys.
Yeah.
Study
your Star Wars history, please.
As much as I love him, and I wouldn't mind him being a consultant on the movies, to be perfectly honest, I do think he brings something special. Like, the collaboration between him and Filoni created an amazing product in the Clone Wars. So I don't want to discount George Lucas at the same time. But
at the same time, he's sold.
Yeah, he's sold us in the series.
It's time to move on.
And I do want to see other authors play.
It's time for us to move on, too.
Yes. So let's move on. Leia.
Okay.
There are a couple things to break down here.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of criticism about like she didn't die in this movie.
Yeah.
Let's talk about just like the reality of that situation. Okay.
I think it would have been a little disrespectful if they did kill her off.
Not only would it have been disrespectful, but it wouldn't like she died after shooting was done.
Yeah.
They would have had to really rewrite a lot of this movie because she is critical to specifically
Poe's arc.
To Poe's arc. Without her, even all the way to the very end.
Yeah.
She's necessary for Poe's arc.
And she may not be actively doing a lot, but she's doing a lot as sort of
she's the goalpost for Poe.
Yes.
To get to.
Yes, and she is the heart of the resistance.
Yes.
And she has to pass that. She's passing the torch to Poe. That's sort of the point of what her and Holdo, what they're doing is about.
Yeah, and teaching Poe to not be a hero, but to be a leader.
Right.
Because Poe is a fantastic hero.
Oh yeah, it's shown in the opening.
Leader. He is a shit leader.
Well, which is, I think, a great moment when they show like the display. Like Leia looks at the display of how many ships he lost and like how many X-wings and all the bombers, and it's 2/3 of their
entire fleet.
Yeah, that's out there, and he loses all of that
for one ship.
Yep.
I mean, it's a big ship, but that's not the only ship.
Right, and sometimes you need to move, like run to fight another day,
and he disobeyed orders. He specifically disobeyed orders to run.
Right, and I've also like so you know we've got Leia and Poe, like they're definitely very closely tied to each other. So here's one thing with Leia. So the Super Leia moment, her using the Force to pull herself back. So I'll be honest, I did think it looked a little goofy. My mind immediately went to. Well, actually, my mind immediately went to Yondu, and I thought, "Oh my God, it's Mary Poppins, y'all!" As she pulls herself to the airlock. Okay. I honestly thought that.
Yeah.
And as goofy as it was, I was happy that we got to see her use the Force. I don't want to see her bust out a lightsaber. It doesn't make sense for her character. It never did because she never chose to be a Jedi in this lore. But it does make sense for her being a diplomat and the general that she is to have learned some Force abilities from Luke along the way. And that was one that worked out for me.
All right, so I'm gonna go actual science on you here.
Okay.
I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about gut biome and basically how it works. Like essentially from our mouth to our asshole is just a tube.
Yeah.
And there's all these microbes that are living in biology and stuff that's living inside this tube inside of us. It's basically like a tunnel through a river. You can look at it and what can happen is based on your biome in your gut, it can it has an effect on you mentally, physically, and all sorts of different ways. Like, you know, when your gut biome is off, like you may be lethargic, you may be angry, you may be depressed. There's all these things that they've put into place here. And I'm going somewhere with this. You're looking at me like, what the fuck, man? I'm actually going with this. So if we follow this and we kind of tie it back to the prequel midichlorian count.
Yeah.
And here's how I kind of view midichlorians. Midichlorians aren't the Force. They are an indicator of where the Force is present. Like maybe they're like microbes in our gut and they feed on the Force.
Qui-Gon says as much.
Right. Yeah. So if that's the case, then Leia, as the daughter of Anakin Skywalker, is going to have a high midichlorian count. She's going to have these microbes inside of her that are living on the Force inside of her. So her being able to instinctually, in a moment of life or death situation, those microbes trying to survive and being able to use the Force to pull herself back in makes total sense to me.
That's an interesting perspective on it. I like that. Yeah. That's sort of an interesting thought. I mean, like I've gotten over midichlorians a bit. I know that's not a popular thought.
I know it's not a popular thought, but like in that context, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like in how it's shot. Like she's in the vacuum of space. And the other thing that I people are like, it's the vacuum of space. You should be dead. That's not how it works, people. That's not actually how it works. I was listening to, and again, another podcast. Neil deGrasse Tyson was asked this question: what happens if you're exposed to the vacuum of space? And he's like, you don't just like explode and you don't automatically freeze. Like it takes time to die, even in the vacuum of space. Your body still retains heat. Yes, it's going to leave you at a fairly quick pace but there is a maximum amount of speed at which that can happen. You will quote unquote slowly die.
Yeah.
Like you have a couple minutes in space before like you're a complete popsicle.
So you got Neil deGrasse Tyson
seems like a fairly credible source on this.
He's not a flat earther, right?
No, he's definitely not a flat earther. So from a science perspective and from a spiritual perspective, that scene makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that scene. I didn't love the way it was shot.
Yeah. It looked like, in all honesty, it looked goofy. So.
It wasn't my favorite shot in the movie. But
you just need to edit in an umbrella and it's Mary Poppins.
Yeah, but the whole I love Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Okay. Huge
Mary
crush on
Poppins
Mary
Returns
Poppins.
is next December.
I'm so excited. I can't tell you. But like from just from a conceptual standpoint, I don't have a problem with that scene at all.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who does, A, doesn't understand the science, B, doesn't understand midichlorians.
Yeah. But I can come to terms with people feeling it's a little goofy. So that's fine.
I mean, I remember thinking like, oh well, God, they're gonna kill her off here. Like,
yeah, I remember thinking the same thing, and I'm so glad they didn't.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you would have had to really rework Poe's story.
Yeah.
To
well,
make
it would have
that
also
work.
felt really disrespectful
like, quick.
to start.
You're like, oh wow, they just fuck her, get her out of here.
Yeah, like, we want to write them all off today, guys.
Everybody's got to go. Everybody out of the pool.
Yeah.
No, so I'm glad they just kept her in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So let's continue a little bit though with Leia later in the movie.
Okay.
So obviously they don't kill her.
They don't kill her. Nobody in the galaxy comes to save her.
Right.
She's lost all of her credibility.
Yeah.
As a rebellion leader. But she's doing everything in her power to teach Poe what he need. Give him all of the tools that he needs to restart a rebellion.
Right.
And I think that is her mission in this movie, is to enable Poe to become the leader of the rebellion that he needs to be.
Really, she's the smartest leader in this entire movie.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
It does seem like it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if she really made any major mistakes. I can't think of any.
Yeah, I can't really think of too much.
I mean, she gets sucked out into space. She goes into a coma. They turn everything over to Holdor, and then she comes and stops Poe from taking over.
Yeah, they get to Crate.
And she's like, this is what it is.
Well, so let's move over to Poe.
Okay.
So here's the thing with Poe. So, we talked a little bit about him being reckless.
Yeah.
One of the things I heard is nobody would have really kept, Holdo wouldn't have really kept Poe out in the dark.
Yeah, they would have.
Yeah. I think people like that, that is a criticism I've heard specifically from one person today.
Looking at you, Jason. I'll call you out, man. I will call you out on this podcast.
I already said they were all dead to me. Whatever. They don't exist anymore.
Rest in peace.
I actually think it makes sense within what they were doing with the story. Like, the guy just lost 2/3 of their fleet. He's reckless. He's just been demoted. So, she's going to tell who she thinks needs to know, and that wasn't Poe.
Yeah, they're in a crisis situation, and they're making split-second decisions.
Yeah, and she doesn't
They don't have time to sit down and hey, everybody, let's have a kumbaya moment.
Yeah.
And let everybody know what we're going to be doing here, and then and then we're going to all hold hands and we're going to pray a little bit.
And I don't want to have to deal with the impulsive pilot, hotshot pilot, who's going to sabotage our plans.
Right. Now, I will say this. Conversely, on that, I think that it's telling that she didn't.
Yeah.
Because it does set in motion the whole, sending Finn and...
Right, that he's still impulsive enough to still do that.
Right.
And she didn't anticipate that.
She didn't anticipate that. And, I think that speaks volumes to why that rebellion is losing.
Yes, because Leia is the only really great leader there.
Right.
As good as Holdo is within the context of it, she still doesn't have the skills that Leia does.
Right.
And it's why it's so important to pass that skill set on
to a new generation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Let's kind of talk a little bit about Holdo's character. What are your thoughts on Laura Dern?
I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I didn't love that character. I think they were trying to make her a formidable powerful general, but at the same time, like they were trying to undercut it by making her like from
putting her at odds with Poe, who you're already a fan of. Yeah.
Right. She had a great redemption.
Yeah.
And a really powerful moment. Sorry, Case.
Yeah. We can't spoil that.
But I think that like that character, was what it was. Like she served her purpose.
Yeah.
Basically. I know there was a lot of people who
she's more there to serve the plot than really be a realized character.
Right. Yeah. So, and one of the criticisms that I've heard about her is, when she does do the hyperspace plow right into Snoke's ship, that should have been Akbar.
Or I've even heard Leia as a possibility, which I think doesn't make any damn sense for it to be Leia.
I don't think it makes any sense at all for it to be Leia.
Like, she's clearly the leader of the whole thing. Like,
yeah.
Why would she have thought, you know what, it's time for me to go?
I'm out. You know what? Yeah, I'm the best.
I've lost the will to live.
That's essentially what that would be. That's exactly what that would be. That would not make any sense. And the idea of Akbar doing it doesn't really do much for that character either.
Yeah, as much as I'm crushed.
I love Akbar.
Yeah, as much as I'm crushed that Akbar was, taken into the reaches of space when Leia went out the first time, and yeah,
he's gone. He died a hero's death.
Yeah,
he died in space doing what he loved, running.
I'll miss him.
Who cares?
Like, at the end of the day, he's a
he's
always been he's really been more of a joke than anything else.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, but like, do you want him at odds with Poe? Do you want him in that?
Honestly, it would be more comical than anything else. Right. Could you take that seriously?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
I'm not going to tell you anything. It's just like, oh, come on. Yeah. Can't take that guy seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I like Admiral Raddus too. That being said, but
you just can't take any of the calamari
and then
serious.
Admiral Codswallow.
Let me tell you something. They all talk the same way. It's all ridiculous. That's a kind of a silly fanboy wish in my mind.
Yeah,
like,
I
know. Because you need
he cracked open the fleet like a crab.
Yeah. you need that you need to have a new character like Laura Dern's character so that you can have her be at odds with Poe and you feel okay about it. If it had been an Admiral Akbar, you don't feel like you're torn now.
Right, because Holdo was new, so you were like, I don't know
if I can trust her.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Especially with the hyperspace tracking thing. Like there's the potential to, like, at one point I actually thought, I wonder if there's someone on board.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was like, I wonder if it's her. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I didn't find out until today. Apparently there's an Easter egg for that in Rogue One.
Yes, when Jyn is looking through
when they're looking through the archives, hyperspace tracking was apparently one of the projects.
Things, yep.
So that's a nice little tie. That was pretty cool.
That's genius.
To use the universe. Pablo Hidalgo even confirmed it. So I thought that was really cool. So it's a little thing. It's not not a huge plot point or anything like that.
No, but it tells you that they are thinking about these things.
Yes, and that is all. I do appreciate that attention to detail.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So moving on from Holdo, so Leia and Poe, I think we still kind of had them in here. So Poe obviously comes to the end of his arc with the decision when they are charging at the ATM6s, I think is what the guerrilla walkers.
Yeah.
And he decides, he realizes that they're going to lose everyone and they're not going to be able to win. So he has them all peel off, and it's time to survive rather than to try to overcommit.
Fight another day.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than try to overcommit to this fight and lose everybody in the process. So I thought that was a very brilliant moment.
It takes him a long time and a lot of losses to come to that.
And it was brilliantly contrasted with Finn's arc, which I thought was, as much as I enjoyed it, it was one of the weaker arcs, I thought, in the movie.
Yes, but he serves a critical purpose.
Yes, and so let's get to that. So Finn and newcomer Rose.
Mm-hmm.
So, we got Finn, who, where he left off, he still didn't, he was only ever interested in Starkiller Base to save Rey. He was never interested in the Resistance.
Nope.
So he begins this movie already on the way out. He only wants to save Rey, and he wants to escape. And
he's in the same spot that he was in Rogue One, or
in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it seemed to be a repeat of his story from the last movie. But I thought that was reasonable to go with,
because he didn't have a reason to grow.
Right.
There was nothing that happened in the Force Awakens that gives him any reason to change his mind.
Right. He still fears the First Order and doesn't want to be a part of this fight. You know, even when I thought one detail I really liked is when he's at Canto Bight and he's loving it and Rose is hating it.
Yeah.
You know.
That scene, I didn't like that scene when I watched it.
Yeah.
I thought I was like, this is a huge waste of time. I don't understand why we're here. I don't understand this story. I was like, where are we going? And then after the movie, I started to think about it, and I was like, oh, that's the heart of the rebellion right there.
Yes. I thought that, yeah.
Yeah, that is the restart of the rebellion right there.
And it's not my favorite scene in the movie by any means.
I thought it was a little long.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to see the effect. Like, here's a complaint that I've heard is, you know, oh, like, we don't really know how, like, the First Order came into power and such a threat. But they were establishing the way the First Order is hurting the galaxy. And to some extent, even the Resistance is hurting the galaxy. I thought it was really brilliant. And I've heard some people criticize this, like this is sort of a 1% Occupy Wall Street type of thing. I don't agree it's that kind of story.
I think it's a militarization, war profiteering.
Industrial military complex story, which I think is very different from that. You know, and whatever your thoughts on all of that. I mean, maybe it did work for you more. Shit. Well, maybe it did work for you as an Occupy story, but to me, it was about the military industrial, and war profiteering. And I think that is a very real, you know, that's definitely a very real issue in our world.
Oh, for sure.
And it makes sense for that to be an issue in the Star Wars universe as well, and have that kind of effect on people.
Yeah.
So that, because a lot of the story is about every man and anyone becoming a hero. Mm-hmm. You know, they have the potential to be that. So for where we left off in this movie, which is like 10 people or 16 people on the Falcon, you know, you kind of like, you have to, I imagine that we're going to have some sort of effort to find Force sensitive people, or to find people to be other people to be part of the Resistance.
See, I didn't see it that way. I saw it a little differently. Yeah. Close, similar, but a little different. I saw the fact that, what's the girl's name? The new girl. Rose and Finn being on that planet and meeting those kids. Yeah. Right? Like, you have this ties into basically the final scene where they're, you know, the kids telling the legend of Luke Skywalker. Yes. Right? And he's telling all these grandiose stories of how he stood and then they shot at him and it didn't hit him and da 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 da. But the reality is that it was those small acts of kindness of actually meeting just regular people like Rose and Finn who ignited those stories in those kids.
That's really cool. I never thought of it that way.
That it's Finn and Rose and just the normal people that actually are the heart of the rebellion. And that's who those kids actually identify with. That in a time of trouble, in a time of when things are stressful to them, they're able to now identify with a face, an actual person, a regular human being. That's not some mythical legend, but like, hey, we saw two regular people fighting the rebellion.
Yeah.
And that's the heart. That's the start of the new rebellion is by the fact that Finn and Rose were there on that planet doing what they did. And that's what leads to the restart of the rebellion.
You just blew my mind. I think I need to go see the movie again. We need to pause our recording and come back to it.
Because you kind of get that feeling like as because they're telling the story of Luke Skywalker, but then it's like, hey, get back to work, and the kid like just pulls the mop with the Force.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's to me that's. The Force is once again reaching out and finding a new person to keep the balance going, and I'm sure somewhere across the galaxy it's happening to a dark side user as well.
I assume the Knights of Ren
somewhere, So that kid has an opposite somewhere to keep the balance of the Force, but that's the heart of the rebellion is just everyday people.
Yeah.
I thought that I thought ultimately that was the message. Like, that's the message that I got out of that movie.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's not really the legends that we're supposed to be like paying attention to, but it's you and me. It's just everyday normal people. Well, maybe not you.
Maybe not you and me. Yeah,
but somewhere everyday people.
I mean, to be fair, I wasn't too far off with the whole idea of creating your own fate and creating your own
like
path.
I said,
it's very closely tied.
Just slightly twisted.
Yeah, it's different from a certain point. Slightly from a certain point of view. CertainPOV.com, all our podcasts are there. Social media. So we had some interesting arcs there. Let's jump over. Well, before we jump over to the villain side, let's stick with a little bit more of a gray character. What did you think of Benicio del Toro's character, DJ?
I didn't love him.
Yeah,
I thought it was a little over the top. I thought he was predictable.
Yeah,
like
I think everyone kind of knew that
where that was going. Go. Yeah.
I think like Holdo, he was also in service of the plot.
Yeah.
More than anything else. I think Rose was a more realized character.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Like we had reason to care about Rose.
Her sister's death.
Her sister's death was really moving and powerful, and how it affected her. And her optimism, I think, was really powerful.
It was really infectious. It was like just in the same way that the actress herself, Kelly. If you watch an interview with Kelly Marie Tran, she is so much fun.
She is. She's special. She really is. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but she's just a special person. She's so upbeat and so positive. And she brought that right into that character. It was good. Like you need that. You need that in a rebellion. And I didn't love the fact that she saved Finn. Yeah. I kind of wanted to see Finn make that sacrifice.
Yeah. I like the saving Finn. I do feel, though, her saving Finn should have either resulted in her dying or at least a less cheesy line kiss and then
faint.
Talia al Ghul's like faint. Because even when we were watching the movie, I was like, that's fine. And then there was the faint, and I was like, I was okay with like the line she delivered and then the kiss. And then she should have still been conscious.
Yeah, like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
We're going to get killed.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, it was a little cheesy. But
I didn't love that. Yeah. That part I will agree that I did not love.
Yeah.
But I liked her character, and I liked the fact, what she brought to the rebellion.
Yeah.
And what she brought to that planet and to those kids and sparked in those kids,
right,
is critical to where Star Wars goes from here. Yeah. Because you can have a story of like, well, what happens to Luke and Leia and all that, but if you don't have a story about how does the rebellion keep going, what's the spark that keeps the rebellion moving forward to keep this conflict going?
What's the nature of the rebellion or resistance?
Yeah, then you lose the heart of it, and now it becomes formulaic. Now it becomes, all right, well, there's just a rebellion, dopey-do.
Right.
This brought a lot of heart to the movie that it didn't have in other places that I thought was really, really critical.
Yeah. So let's move over to the dark side characters. So we got Kylo Ren.
Oh, he's so badass.
Right?
So badass.
Yeah. It's so conflicted. I think that was what was very interesting.
For a while.
Yes.
For a while.
But then there's a moment that creates resolve. And
he's just like, fuck it, I'm going in.
Yeah.
I'm going deep.
And he is very sure, but he is informed by his experiences. I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, if you saw Luke hovering over you and about to kill you, I kind of would join the dark side at that point.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, dude, I'm out. Like, what are you doing? Like, I thought this was like a cool summer camp.
Yeah.
You're standing over me with a laser sword. Sweating bullets. Like, not cool. Not cool at all.
Which actually, let's talk about a little bit about that scene. Seeing the certain points of view.
Yeah,
I thought that was really that was one of my favorite moments.
Really well done. They stretch that out and they pull that taffy as thin as they possibly can.
Yeah,
till you realize what actually totally happened.
Yeah,
and I like that. I like that a lot, and I like the way Kylo handled it.
Yes,
like he was very matter of fact about it. Of like, did he tell you?
Yeah,
like his delivery and his dealings with Rey were so interesting to me. I know there was like, oh, they're force texting and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's not like we've never seen people reaching out using the force before.
It's already been established in Star Wars lore. We saw Vader and Luke. We saw Luke and Leia. So like, and we know like
this is just the next extension.
Ben and Yoda have felt the presence
of what.
Well, we felt like the loss of so many people.
Yeah,
and Alderaan and Order 66. So this isn't without precedent.
Yeah, it's just the next extension of it.
Yeah, and
when you find out that it's Snoke manipulating it,
it makes
even more sense. You're like, oh, okay, that's how it was working. Like, okay, that's cool. And and now you understand why Snoke feels so confident in that throne room.
Right. Because
he's like, I know exactly what I just did. Like, I know exactly what you two assholes are thinking because I set it up.
Right.
Yeah. I love Kylo in this movie. Like, he goes from The Force Awakens of being kind of whiny, impetus, angry, emo.
Yeah, wearing a ridiculous helmet that Snoke points out.
Right, and he smashes it and crushes it. And he comes into his own. Like, the criticism of Snoke is a paper thin, Marvel-esque villain is true only in the aspect that now we have Kylo Ren as a fully realized, three-dimensional, badass, evil guy
who's had a better sort of like ascending to power than Anakin did.
Way better than Anakin did. Way better than we got with Palpatine.
Yeah.
Like, he's way more developed. We understand his motivation way more. We understand where he's come from. We understand why he's doing the things that he's doing. Kylo Ren is the best villain Star Wars has ever had. Plain and simple. He is incredible. He is incredibly written and he's incredibly played. All the criticisms about how the way he behaves in The Force Awakens pays off so well in this movie. Again, like, to me, we talked about how this is a lot about like how people are becoming leaders.
Right.
It's also about how people are letting go of the past.
Yes.
Of which Kylo has to finally come to terms with. And he also has to come to terms with being basically like people are in this movie are realizing that they're becoming fully realized adults in this movie.
Right.
It's a lot of letting go of these childish behaviors and thoughts and becoming a fully realized adult human being who can think and develop and make decisions on their own for better or worse.
Yeah.
Like Kylo's motivations are completely understandable.
Yeah.
And are completely rational.
Yeah.
Which you can't say about for 99% of movie villains.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought it was great. I thought the way that he was trying to manipulate Rey, was really, really good.
Yeah,
but also but he was doing doing it by being brutally honest with her.
Yes, that's the thing. Like, I know some people have questions. Oh, like maybe he's lying to Rey about her parentage. I think he was. Knowing that so many people had lied to him and deceived him, or at least he felt deceived by people he considered family and all of that, I think he knew that the relationship he had with Rey needed to be brutal honesty, so that he was telling the truth, and a truth that Rey herself knew. So she searched her feelings and she knew it to be true. And he just used other phrases to describe that essentially. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was compelling, and I like that you're nobody. This isn't your story. But that makes the contrast between Rey and Kylo Ren so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because he's carrying the legacy of the Skywalker family, but he's
living in that hubris.
Yes, he's living in that hubris, and he's choosing the most powerful Skywalker. He's choosing Anakin. He's choosing Vader because he believes that's the right way to go and to finish it, because he's so obsessed with the legend of Vader instead of who the man truly was.
Right.
And I think, again, it's that hero worship that we're seeing that Rey has overcome in this movie, but Kylo Ren hasn't.
Right.
And that I'm really fascinated.
I think that
what I really hope
need to learn that lesson a little bit.
It's fine if they don't do this, but like, this is just my brainstorming. Like, if I was doing episode 9, what'd be pretty cool is like especially since they showed it in Rogue One, is if we see Kylo Ren take up Vader's castle as his headquarters. Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be dope.
Mustafar,
yeah, that would be dope.
But yeah, whatever. Obviously, whatever Abrams decides to do, I'm excited to see.
Yeah.
So let's move on. So outside of that, I think we've talked a good amount about Snoke and sort of his use in sort of everything. Hux. What are your thoughts about Hux? I've heard some people are not crazy about how he's just kind of made a fool of in this movie. But he is
and he's not.
Yes.
He is in that one scene by Poe. And then the rest of the time, he is destroying the rebellion.
Well, Snoke also, like, throws him around a little bit, and even Kylo Ren throws him around a bit in that walker, too. When they're...
Yeah, but by then, Kylo Ren is the leader of
Yes.
He is the fully realized villain.
But I think he's also sort of the same Hux is sort of the same quality as every middle management in the Empire, like General Veers and,
Yeah, we're not supposed to, like, you fear those guys because they will blow you up in a heartbeat. But they're also not the big bad.
They've always been a couple notches below Vader and Palpatine and Tarkin.
B-tier bad guys.
Yeah. Like Thrawn and Tarkin are really the only Imperial
generals that anybody gives a shit about. Yeah. Everybody else is kind of a buffoon.
You need to get at least Grand Moff or Grand Admiral.
Yeah,
Thrawn.
Before anybody gives a shit about
But if
you.
if you're just an admiral in the Imperial Navy, you're not.
You're garb. You might as well be wearing a red shirt in Star Trek.
So it maintained that tradition. But I was fine with him being used for some comic relief at times. But I really do like the moment where he contemplating killing Kylo Ren.
Yes.
I think
and almost gets it off.
Yeah, and it might have some like indications of potential futures for like the nature of the First Order and maybe what does ultimately bring down Kylo Ren. Because I thought that like so my thought the reason I'm thinking that is Rose's line is about we need to fight for what we love, not what we hate. So like
I like where you're going here.
What does that mean for like what you're supposed to do as a Jedi? Because we also know that as a Jedi, Luke decides not to strike down the Emperor and strike down Vader. So does that mean like we're like will we get the like I'm sure we'll get big fights. I'm not saying we won't between maybe Jedi and Sith potentially. But is the final moment Rey striking down Kylo Ren, or is it Kylo Ren being brought down by his own grand schemes? I mean, obviously, this is
you
all.
You can go so many ways.
Yeah, there's so much direction, which again is one thing that's so cool about this episode 9 is that, like, honestly, we really don't have any real ideas of what to expect in that movie.
Right. Yeah,
and I love it.
Yeah. Whereas going into this movie, I think a lot of us had expectations of where we were going to go, and that's where the disappointment comes. Going into the next movie is like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we know that the Skywalker legacy is tied to it, but the Skywalker legacy could be anything.
At this point, it's up to Kylo.
Yeah.
Like, that's the last of the Skywalker legacy. Like, we're not going to get much more of Leia.
Yeah.
If we get anything more. Like,
I mean, I'm assuming she's going to die off screen. At most, I think if we do get something of Leia, we'll get her funeral at the beginning of the movie.
Something like that, yeah. Or she'll just be mentioned in the crawl. Like, and that's it. Like, you keep moving.
Yeah.
So, like, from the old school Skywalker legacy is gone. Like, it's done. Like, we've wrapped that story up. Now we're on to the new.
I do think we'll see Luke as a Force ghost, though. I imagine we'll see a little bit of Force Ghost Luke because it also seems like there was a little. Now, here's the thing with this trilogy, and Rian Johnson confirmed it, is that there was no real blueprint for this overall trilogy. Yeah. That each guy's kind of
doing their own thing.
Yeah. So, which is I like it's fine. I'm okay with that.
It's working so far.
So, but if there is a little bit more continuity, if they are definitely looking at each other's elements and picking and choosing which elements they want to move forward with. If there's something to take forward here, there is definitely precedent for Force ghosts being able to interact, have become more powerful. Mm-hmm. The scope of Force powers are greater than they have
much
before.
Greater.
I mean, we got Force illusion, which I leaned over. I was like, "Oh my God, it's Force illusion!
It's happening!"
He rolled a natural 20. I mean, I know some people are not crazy about Force illusion, Luke. I thought
it was amazing.
I love that he chose to look the exact same way he did when Kylo Ren last saw him, the younger. I think Leia knew it was a Force illusion, but I love that like the Force illusion is something that people can feel, that even C-3PO can see. Yes. I know some people are complaining, well, 3PO can see him, and that doesn't make any sense. But clearly, you don't get the nature of the Force, I guess, because it is
midichlorians.
Yeah. You maybe need to scale that back just a little bit.
I'm gonna back off of that one. I will back off of that one.
But yeah, I love seeing Force Illusion, and maybe it's just because we've used Force Illusion. My characters use Force Illusion
so
a number of times in the D20 game. I'm just like, yes, that's exactly I feel like I've done this, guys.
Yeah, I did this before Luke did it.
I even lost HP like he did, just not as much as he did, because he did it a whole lot better than I've ever done it.
So much farther, so much better. Yeah, I thought it was amazing.
But we also have precedent for Force Ghosts, having a little bit more. Like we saw, Yoda was able to summon a little bit of lightning to set the tree on fire, and we also saw that like he hit Luke with his staff as a Force Ghost.
Yeah.
So, which I think works within the lore and the mysticism of it, because we know that Qui-Gon was the first one who
kind of brought it back into the Jedi powers.
Right, and Obi-Wan and Yoda are figuring it out and
learning from Qui-Gon.
Who the hell knows if we'll see a Hayden Christensen Force Ghost in the next movie? Maybe get some redemption working with a good director.
I hope so.
Luke Force Ghost is a potential. Maybe the younglings from the Jedi Temple will jump. No,
I don't think we get that.
Master Skywalker.
No, we don't get that. They didn't have time to learn it.
That's true.
They're younglings. They would not.
Well, Yoda's got to teach someone in the. Maybe he has a Force Ghost Jedi school.
I don't think that's how it works.
Is it okay?
No. I thought that was really cool and really smart. And like Star Wars is built on the tradition of westerns and Kurosawa films and stuff like that.
Which, by the way, how awesome that the last fight with Kylo versus Luke,
so badass.
So I was thinking just about the way they were just shifting their stances.
Yes,
I was thinking exactly Kurosawa. I was thinking the Obi-Wan Maul fight in Rebels.
Yep.
I was so happy with that. Continuing with action. Back-to-back fight scene in the throne room.
Oh, with Rey and Kylo
versus the Praetorian Guard and their all amazing weapons.
Oh, God, that was That was beautiful.
Yeah,
that was John Woo.
Yes,
like for as Luke and versus Kylo was Kurosawa. Rey and Kylo was John Woo.
Yeah,
and it was beautiful.
And as short as it was, I did like the mini fight between Rey and Luke as well on Ahch-To before she leaves with. I assume she grabbed the books then.
Either she did, or the caretakers put it on, or the Porgs put it on the Millennium Falcon.
The Porgs.
Somebody grabbed them.
Somebody did. I
assumed it was Rey, because
especially since she knows that Luke is not interested in the Jedi Order anymore. So it makes sense for Rey. Here's an interesting thought about
it. Also makes sense for the caretakers.
Because they hate Rey so much.
Just give her the books and get her the fuck off this planet. They're so over this chick.
So here's something I kind of had to think through a little bit. Because Yoda, I didn't realize that the texts were on the Falcon until later.
Right. It's again subtle.
Right. And Yoda kind of says, "Oh, they're not important. They're not page turners," which is great. I love that line. Especially for anybody who's read Leviticus, that's just right up that alley right there. Right. There are a couple minor prophets that are a little difficult to make it through too. Let's be honest.
There's a couple major ones.
Yeah. But I thought that was really fascinating. Now, if she's using that, I also think it makes sense for and again, this is just my if I was making the next movie, again, whatever Abrams makes, I'm looking forward to it, and it could be a completely different direction. But I think what would be interesting, especially now that Luke has also learned the lesson that he needs to pass both his strengths and his weaknesses, I think he makes a very interesting mentor for Rey as a Force Ghost as well. It doesn't make sense for Yoda to be that mentor, but he can be sort of what is it? I forget the name of the apologetics, the movement of there's certain authors who have kind of taken a certain view about Christianity and Scripture, like C.S. Lewis in particular is one of the apologetics as far as how they view interpretation of Scripture. Yeah. And Luke is the perfect, instead of no longer disillusioned, but more of an apologetics,
right?
Philosopher on the Jedi faith.
Here's my take of where shit went bad.
Yes, exactly.
I like that. I like that idea. And you're right. I mean, here's how I view
it's less Grey Jedi than I originally
hoped for. Yeah, but you are getting a more pure reset version of the Jedi.
Yes,
which is probably closer to a Grey Jedi than what we've gotten so far.
And I think just perfectly honest, as much as I want Grey Jedi,
I'm okay if we don't.
Yeah, and because here's the difficulty, because you also need the dichotomy of dark versus light, and a little bit of the ease of being able to say, well, dark side's bad and light side's good.
Makes for a better movie that way.
Yeah, it's harder. It is very, very difficult to get into that. Maybe, like, I think that's great. I think the Grey Jedi are great material for the extended universe. Like, give me a comic, give me some books, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, but I can see that's a difficult path to run for the movies. And I think I've always known that too. That was always going to be a tough sell. So yeah. So I mean that's sort of my thoughts on like the scripture. Let's talk a little bit. So here is some filmmaking, sort of like the techniques of it.
Okay.
Less wipes in this movie. There were a couple, but there were a lot of straight up cuts.
Just straight up
which
cuts.
I thought was very. If that definitely felt
You're like,
very.
oh, this is not a George Lucas film.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I
even
missed
Force
them.
Awakens uses the
I missed
wipes.
them. I really love the wipes.
Yeah. Do you think
it
it needs to be wipes for it to be a Star Wars movie? Like for your personal.
No, but I like it.
Yeah.
Like to me that feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Like when I see that I'm like, oh, I am watching a Star Wars movie because nobody else uses wipes.
Yeah.
Nobody.
There are a couple like subtle wipes here and there sometimes if you use an object to cover a wipe. But
but not like Star Wars does, where it's just like, and this is a wipe, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, pay attention.
Right.
Like,
there was one that stood out. Case and I were talking about it, where Kylo Ren balls up his fist, and then it cuts from the balled up fist into the hyperspace tunnel. That was a
nice
little,
wipe.
I thought that was a little cool one. But outside of that, it was almost
if
all
there
hard
were
cuts.
any, I don't really remember any of the wipes. So if there were more than that, I don't remember them. Whereas, and I couldn't tell you what they all were in any other movie either, to be perfectly honest with you, other than the fact that I know they exist and I know I like them when I see them. And when I see them, I think Star Wars.
Right.
And maybe that plays into, like, I've heard a lot of people go like, this just didn't feel like a Star Wars movie to me. Like maybe subconsciously not having those wipes, like, just made this feel like every other science fiction movie to a lot of people.
Another space opera movie. Yeah. I can see that. Music. John Williams is
hard to screw it up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There were a couple times I almost thought we were going to go into the Jurassic Park theme.
Jurassic Park.
That's
a different movie.
I've been trying to sell people on a Jurassic Park movie, especially since we had Laura Dern in this movie. Like to flashback to her when she was in college and going on maybe she goes on an expedition somewhere for genetically engineered porgs gone awry. Jurassic Porg.
Jurassic Porg. Okay. I didn't hate the porgs.
Spin-off movies, I mean, we got
synergy.
Got ideas.
Yeah. I didn't hate the porgs. Can I just say that?
Yeah, I was going to get to creatures soon, but we'll come back around to music.
The music was fine. It was
good.
I
like the themes. I like Rey's theme a lot. I liked Rey's theme even in Force Awakens. I like the Octo music a lot. I've already added that to my soundtracks playlist.
Right.
And I like Kylo Ren's theme as well. The First Order theme hasn't quite grown on me quite yet, but
it's not the Empire theme, but
come on, the Imperial March is hard to.
That's a high fucking bar.
It is.
Yeah, it was good. I don't remember. Like, to me, I don't remember sitting in the theater and thinking about the music at all.
Really?
But it just being in the background and being part of it.
There were a couple times it straight up stood out to me.
Yeah.
Because the Emperor's theme actually plays like straight up, like not a version, not like a variation and elements of it. The Emperor's theme straight up plays during one of Snoke's moments.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what?
Works.
That's what Snoke is.
That's who he is. He's just as realized and just as powerful as Palpatine is in Jedi.
Yeah.
Like that's all he needed to be.
And it's such an ominous, and it's great music. I love the Emperor's music. And it's also given me greater the Emperor's theme has actually given me great appreciation for Phantom Menace. With I think you remember the moment I'm going to tell you about, but like the Augie's Great Municipal Band, which is the end music of Phantom Menace when they have the big parade, which is basically the Emperor's theme in like a more higher upbeat music.
It's a major key instead of a minor key.
Exactly, and it's so cool that because it's his victory, but nobody knows it.
Nobody knows how awful it is.
It is the Phantom Menace. It is the Phantom Victory, basically. For Chancellor Palpatine taking over Chancellor Valorum and on his ascendancy to the Emperor.
Because that's what we need. We need another movie to explain how Snoke came
rose
to power. Yeah, that's what we need.
From senator to chancellor to emperor.
What is his grand? What's Snoke's title?
Supreme Leader.
Supreme Leader.
Yeah, a very North Korean dictator.
It fits for our times. Like this is an updated version. Yeah, fits for our times. I like it.
Yeah. Let's. Creatures. So
porgs were cool. They're hilarious.
The Chewie about to eat the roasted porg.
I really wish he had just been like, you know what?
It looked pretty tasty.
Just bit into it. We didn't get the scene with like Chewie with the feather sticking out of his mouth that we saw in the trailers.
Yeah.
So that was disappointing because I wanted to see Chewie eat a porg.
Yeah,
but I did like
that.
Him.
Being said, you did also laugh when the porg hit the window of the Falcon.
I did. They were.
I leaned over to you. I was like, I will never forget that you laughed at that.
I laughed at that because they weren't stopping the First Order in any way, shape, or form. They were just there to be exactly what they were, comic relief.
That's true. And I did tell you, and obviously I never expected it to happen, but a little part of me hoped that there would be 3 porgs managing the gunner seat at one point, like one wearing the headset.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That would have been crazy. You know what, though? I'm okay with Rian Johnson putting Rey in the gunner seat for that.
It made more sense, yeah.
I think it works, yeah.
The porgs were cool. I'm trying the big
caretakers.
The caretakers I thought were hilarious as well. Like just how annoyed they were with Rey. It was great comic relief in a very tense like setting. Like that tension between her and Luke and trying to get Luke to come out of his shell. Like you needed to have some sort of break there, and having the caretakers as that was good. Yeah. Like I thought they were used well. Yeah. I do kind of like. I kind of like. I didn't want it in the movie, but I would like to know more about them and like what they do. Yeah. Like, are they just on that planet? Is that the only place that they are?
Are they on other Force temples somewhere? Yeah. You mentioned the cow creature.
The cow creature that Luke milks. Gross.
Yeah.
It's not blue milk.
Yeah, that was the one complaint I heard from Jason. He said it was a missed opportunity to bring in blue milk.
I thought they could have made it blue milk, but it would have. Then you go, oh, it's just fan service. They're just fan servicing everybody. Everything's just fan service. It was weird. It was but it also kind of made Luke's reality real. Like this is what he does. Yeah. Of like he's living off the land and off these creatures, and it's a stark, basic, hard existence. Right. Especially once you find out like, oh, he's cut himself off from the Force.
Yes.
Like he is literally just living it out as rough as he possibly can. Yeah. And it makes him more sympathetic in my mind. You're like, okay, like he really has gone through some trauma here where he's like, this is what how he's chosen to live out his life is this way, you know, and it's not romanticized, and it's ugly, and it didn't look great. Like,
no, definitely not. It was not meant to look great. So
no, well, and not like even the creature was kind of dumb looking in the way they did it. Like, I didn't love that, to be perfectly honest. Oh yeah, I love the idea of it. Yeah, but I didn't like the execution of the animal.
Well, I thought it was funny when it like sort of makes eye contact with Rey, and it was just really uncomfortable. I thought that was the funny part about that. Yeah,
it's nice. Yeah, I mean, there are little moments like that, subtle.
Yeah, exactly. I will also say though, coming back to a more serious moment, and also a funny moment was I do really like the scene where Rey is trying to describe what the Force is, and she's like reciting like something she read in a book. Right. Like, the Force is a power source that Jedi have that can move things and stuff.
Move rocks.
Yeah. And I love the little funny moment they share when Luke is when she's reaching out with the Force and she's
smacks her. She wiggles on her hand. Do you feel it? Do you feel it?
Yes, I feel it.
Crack.
But then, like, it also leads to an incredibly beautiful moment. I love the way they cut between that whole idea of the chaos and like the violence of the Force, but then the peace. Like they show that the Porg, you know, with the baby Porgs, and then they also show like that Porg nest being like wiped away but like the whole idea of balance and nature and it's the life in between all of that binds all of that together. It was a really cool version of what Yoda told him.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, it was a newer, more accurate description.
Yeah. Exactly. So I thought that was really cool. Let's come back around to the creatures. The crystal foxes. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I thought they were cool.
Yeah. They look great.
And, I thought they were a cool part of the plot too.
They serve like that is a trope that Star Wars has used a lot, especially in the expanded universe of the cartoons. Like there's been several times on several different planets where like the creatures on a planet
will find an escape.
Well,
we've seen it in
help
Rebels,
them, especially in Rebels, but they also did it a couple times in Clone Wars as well.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So yeah, like that's not an like that's been done probably too much. It probably shouldn't have been done here, if anything, because it's like okay, but it also
hasn't been done in any of the movies yet.
Hasn't been done in any of the movies, but it also like I think like it was done purposefully. Like they know that they've used that idea before.
Right.
It's not like, you know, it's not like somebody in Story Group was like, oh yeah, we've never done that before. So they know they've done that before. And so the question is why? Here's what I think, and I hope somebody, you know, Pablo Hidalgo or somebody answers this eventually. I think that they see the Force as, you know, using simple creatures like that as a tool to guide the Force sensitives and the heroes and the villains to keep the balance in the Force.
Yeah.
Like they know that if, you know, that the good side of the Force, or the light side of the Force, knows that if those people die, there's imbalance.
Right.
And so it's able to manifest itself in these creatures and help lead them to an escape. And then there's also been times where the dark side of the Force uses creatures to attack and right. Also, so I think to continue that balance. Yeah. To continue the balance.
Like we're talking about the peace and chaos of the Force.
Right. And I think we now are dealing with a Force that is much like it's not just a power, like it's very sentient. Yeah. And it like there are two competing sides to it, and it knows that it must have balance.
Right.
You know, the fact that it created Anakin, and then it created, you know, a way for him to fall and stuff like that. And when Luke rose, it the dark side manifested itself with Snoke.
Right.
And then when Snoke died, there was no reason for the light to hold on, you know, to keep Luke anymore, and Luke died.
Yeah.
And now, you know, when Kylo is ascending to power, the light side is ascending Rey to power to keep that balance.
Right.
You know, that there's a constant synergy on both sides working with and against each other at the same time to keep a balance and natural order of things. And you see this like done in nature all the time, like you know, predators eating prey. You know, there has to be there's moments of just vicious, ugly murder. You know, in nature, in order for that to keep that balance, because otherwise, you know, the deer or whatever, the land mammals or whatever would just like grow, overpopulate, and destroy the forest.
Right.
You got to have those predators to clear out some of those animals, especially the weak and the sick and stuff like that, so that it doesn't kill the entire group too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see them interpreting the Force right now.
Right.
Is having sort of that balance and that need to have like a constant back and forth to keep things in balance. And that it's not a balance of like things are good. No. That things are in conflict. That there has to be conflict. Conflict is the balance.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty deep, pretty complex thought process for the movie to really get into.
Right.
And I think that's where they took that with, and I saw, that's how I interpreted the foxes.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
Let's also the new locations. We got some new places: Octo, Canto Bight, Crate. I thought Crate was a really cool looking planet.
Yeah.
I was really happy. I mean, I love the Snoke's throne room as well. Was really cool.
It's beautiful
with those reds. Although we still need to see it in Dolby Vision.
Yeah.
So
we'll go this week.
Yeah. So Octo I thought was beautiful. The theme music for Octo is already in
gorgeous,
my playlist.
yeah.
I said. So here's the thing. So we've been gushing about this movie for the most part. Any sort of like little things that bugged you here and there that we haven't already mentioned? Any things that were a little bit cringeworthy? There were a couple moments here and there.
Yeah.
I think Phasma was a little wasted
I was
in this
shocked
movie.
that they killed her that way.
Yeah. Apparently
but I
Ryan
also
Johnson
wasn't.
Yeah. I did hope they would do a little bit like. I don't know exactly how to use her without, I don't know, slowing down the story, especially in this version.
Yeah, this
of the
movie's
story.
already 3 hours long, right?
Right, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do think she deserved at least in that action scene a little bit more. I don't know, like she's fallen into a category of really cool looking villains who've gotten wasted.
Who meet an early death.
Right,
Boba
like
Fett.
Darth Maul, Boba Fett, and Jango Fett.
Yeah.
Have all fallen into that category,
Yeah.
which is fine. I mean, they're doing stuff with Phasma in the extended universe for us to appreciate and enjoy her.
Right.
But I feel like they could give her a little bit more of a badass moment before they just knock her out the way they did. But whatever.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see her. I
Do
guess
something cool.
Well, I guess like if I had to rewrite it, I might have her replace Hux.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like have Kylo kill Hux like Vader kills his
Oh, right.
generals
And so that
or
Phasma.
admirals.
Yeah,
And
because I would have liked
like,
Phasma to
ranks up.
survive and then let promote Phasma instead. Because
Yeah.
you see Kylo Ren run with like the first time you see Kylo Ren,
He's with
he's with Phasma. So
Yeah.
that would have been an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But whatever. They moved on from it. That's fine.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Like
Ryan Johnson joked that she's like Kenny from South Park. It might just come back
my
anyway.
I mean, we saw her fall into fire. That doesn't mean she's dead.
Yeah, she could just come out really like burned
Singed.
and everything. Yeah.
Would be kind of cool.
I mean, apparently it's canon that Boba Fett's still alive. Got out of the Sarlacc pit.
She
So
could, yeah.
yeah. So anyway, here's one thing that I thought was a little cringeworthy. So there are a couple things like where people are like, oh my god, that's not what people would say in Star Wars. I don't subscribe
That's
to that.
ridiculous.
But
Watch a Star Wars movie.
Right. Well,
nobody would say that shit.
there was one line that I was like I cringed a little bit. So it was on the Battle of Crate, and I like this line. So like as soon as the Falcon shows up, Kylo Ren yells out to shoot down that piece of junk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I cringed a little bit when Finn shouts, "Oh, they hate that ship! They hate that ship!" Like he got a little urban there for a moment, and it's not a problem that he got urban because there are a couple other moments where he does that, and I love it.
Yeah.
But that one was a little like, okay, like
calm down.
Yeah, just a little bit. Like,
Yeah, you guys are still screwed.
Like, and we already heard Kylo say that, so it seemed a little redundant.
Yeah.
And like, how do you already know that they really hate that ship already? Like from your interaction. I mean, I guess he was an insider. I guess he already knew. Like, there were memos about the.
If anybody
Falcon.
ever sees this ship, shoot it down. Yeah, and it is a little weird that Kylo loses his shit so much
when he sees the Falcon.
Yeah,
I loved it. I love that. Because I love that he's so hateful. Like he talks about destroying his past, but he doesn't.
He holds onto it so tight.
He is so attached to his past. That's why he's so angry and so conflicted and so bitter. Yeah. And it forms everything that he is.
Yeah, you win.
So
yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah, I did like it from his point of view, but like I didn't need Finn going like oh, you know that they hate that ship. I'm gonna make that like I'm gonna go into like keep on taking it further.
I'm not even sure he actually said that, but
yeah, I know. He just said, "Oh, they hate that ship."
Yeah.
So anyway, any other thoughts? With this
I want to
movie?
see it again and again.
Yeah, I've seen it twice.
I want to see it again, and I want to give it a little time. Like, where do you've seen it twice? Where do you have it ranked right now?
So here's the thing: what happens with every Star Wars movie is and this happened with the prequels too, okay?
Right.
I come out of the theater and I'm hyped and I love it. Because I loved Attack of the Clones when I came out of it. And on that second viewing, it definitely dropped. Like, when I saw Yoda bouncing around the second time, I was like, I'm not as into this as I thought I was. You know? But I remember the first time he pulls out that saber, and then he bounces around all over Dooku, and nothing really happens in that fight. I thought that was the best thing I've ever seen. Revenge of the Sith, I also really loved, and there's still parts of that experience I really love. I still love the opening battle for Revenge of the Sith, but it always has a tendency, like, there's the hype of Star Wars, then it calms down a little bit. Force Awakens, like, when I came out of Force Awakens, I was like, this is the best Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi, and my ranking before had been Empire, Jedi, and then A New Hope, so I had already thought of it as better than A New Hope. To me, it's now fallen just one notch below. It's below, Force Awakens is below A New Hope. Rogue One, I was like, this is the best movie since Return of the Jedi as well. Since then, it's fallen below Force Awakens.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it had dropped that far for you.
Yeah, but still above the prequels.
All right. That goes without saying.
Right. But, like, so there's still, like, good Star Wars is above the prequels. And then there's the prequels.
There's still a line. There's a line of demarcation.
Yeah. But Rogue One, there's still a lot of moments I really love, and I like it especially in the context of Rebels. Because I think I can't separate it from the context of Rebels and the nature. Because when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is the nature of the Rebel Alliance. These, like, a lot of your thoughts of, like, this is the view of, like, the Canto Bight story. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what people in the galaxy are viewing the rebellion as. Yeah. That was the appeal of Rogue One for me. But that was kind of all it was. Yeah. Like, it doesn't really hit on the mysticism much. It does a very interesting and other perspective, and I like that. But again, it's like, yes, there's not a lot of character development. I also think because it's a war movie, it deals only in very
everybody dies
broad
so
archetypes.
Yeah.
But it's also like, you watch a World War II movie, you know, like, all right, like, you're not expecting like a sudden turn for like Hitler suddenly wins, guys. You know,
you don't have enough time to really bond with any of these characters.
Yes, absolutely. But so again, like, these fall a little bit, but the starting point matters on that. And for the starting point for this movie, where it is right now, it is on par, maybe better. I need another viewing to find out if I think it's better than Empire Strikes Back.
Let's go.
You know, right? But right now, this is like, and here's the thing. Like, I will, like, I explained why I liked Rogue One, because I like I like war movies. I loved Sheridan Bay's. You know, I loved K2SO. And I like the nature of the Rebel Alliance. So that's why that movie, and I've watched it several times, and I still enjoy it.
I like it more as I watch it.
Yeah.
The more I watch it, the more I like it.
Yeah, my enjoyment for the movie hasn't fallen, but my, like, in retrospect, where it compares to other Star Wars movies, its lasting value does change a little bit. With The Last Jedi, the reason why I don't think it'll fall more than one spot, I do think it might end up falling to maybe number 2. Only because the plot is very dense, but the spiritual aspects and the character aspects are so strong that it could stay at number 1 for me.
Yeah.
So, and for me, the mysticism has always been the part I love about Star Wars the best. I don't remember, I think I said it in this episode, but again, my favorite Star Wars moments are Yoda lifting the X-Wing out of the swamp on Dagobah and the conversation he has. The luminous beings are we? It's my favorite line in all of Star Wars. Not that luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
Right.
Again, but I never thought another Yoda line, especially after the prequels, was going to be another favorite moment for me. Mm-hmm. But in The Last Jedi, masters are meant to be outgrown, and you know your failures are your biggest are your greatest teacher. Like, that conversation with Luke was my absolute favorite moment in this movie. Going even to Rebels and Clone Wars, my favorite moments are the Mortis trilogy in Clone Wars and the training of the Darksaber in Rebels. So it always comes back to those character-driven and mysticism-influenced moments in Star Wars. So
this movie is heavy with.
Exactly, and I have a hard time imagining it's going to fall any further than second, and it may just stay in first place for me. Yeah. So, well, what about you? Where does this kind of fall?
I'm with you. Like, right now, It's my favorite Star Wars movie. Now, that may change upon multiple viewings and you know, the adrenaline coming down of like, holy crap, we got a great Star Wars movie. Generally though, like with the last two movies with Force Awakens and Rogue One, like they didn't change. Like when I came out of those movies, I was like, I don't like that movie as much. Like it was okay.
Right.
Like, you know, and I didn't love Rogue One.
Yeah.
We had a lot of conversations about that. And I thought, you know, The Force Awakens was a good movie for what it was, but it, you know, in a lot of ways it was a rehashing of A New Hope. Yeah, but it was resetting the table, and that's kind of how
it was introducing the new characters,
well, like,
new generation.
It's how I view these two movies. Like The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams sets the table, and then in this movie, Rian Johnson just pulls the tablecloth out and is just like, ta-da, look at this, and you're just like, holy crap, what did I just see? This is amazing. And now I don't know where you go. Like, I don't know what this last installment is going to be.
Exciting.
That is super exciting to me. To me, this is my favorite Star Wars movie right now, just simply because I feel like it does more to move the Star Wars universe forward than we've had since Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, absolutely. Which was also a movie met with mixed critical reception.
Yeah. A lot of people did not like that movie when it came out. But you know, and I think given time, people are going to think about this in the same way as The Empire Strikes Back, of like, wow, this movie is controversial and it does a lot of really brave things, but it does so in the need to move the story forward and move the universe forward in a way that we're excited to see how it all ties up. And I am super excited to see how it all ties up.
Cool. Well, let us know what your thoughts are on Star Wars The Last Jedi Episode 8 in the Skywalker saga of these Star Wars movies. You can go to our website, certainpov.com. You can comment on our website. You can comment on any of our social media pages. All of that is, again, on our website, certainpov.com. And until next time, stay scruffy, my Nerf herders.